Transrealism is really rooted in reality. That's the realism part of the transrealism. And it can even be autobiographical, but it's deeply rooted in the author's experience. So it's very, very real. But alongside that is some bizarre or maybe a fantasy, science fiction or horror kind of thread that goes along with it. So it's almost like you have dual storylines in the same book, one of which is really real and the other, it's like they throw this fantasy element into the reality. The other thing about transrealism is that it doesn't have archetypal characters in it. The characters are very real and they don't worry about the normal sort of ideas of plot.
That sounds like danger.
It can be, but I think the interest is in the juxtaposition of reality and this other fantastical element. And the aim of transrealism as a sort of literary movement is to question consensual reality, to present other kind of alternative views of what reality is, and also what is normal, what is considered normal in terms of character. So that's why it's a literary movement, not just a genre.
My brain hurts.
For instance, my book, Worlds Within Worlds, is deeply rooted in my experience as an author. So the main character, it's like really real. But then I've put in these other threads, which are her memories, her dreams, her imagination, her spiritual experience, possibly past life glimpses. And what that does is it presents a different view of the nature of identity, right? And all of these different aspects of her life have their own reality. So what it does is it questions our whole perception of what we consider reality, because we tend to limit it to the physical. Whereas in that book, the physical is only one thread, and yet it is all rooted in reality.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go read a transrealist book and see what you think.
So A Scanner Darkly is considered to be the first book in the transrealism genre, and it's a story of the author's experience in a drug scene, and the fantastical aspect of it is a mind-shattering drug experience. So it's like a dual story. And like Portal stuff could be transrealism, so long as it's got a good solid basis in reality. So that, for instance, you could have someone in the ordinary world and in the gaming world.
So what is the difference then between magical realism and transrealism?
The difference is that in magical realism, the magic is a metaphor for the character's psychological and emotional state. Right? So it's the extended metaphor that's really important for what you would call magical realism. Whereas in transrealism, the magical element is real, right? They've put the magical element into the real world. Like if we're talking about someone who's got their ordinary life and their gaming life, the gaming life is presented as real. It's not just the character sort of going into a fantasy, magical thought process. It's like you're feeling really happy and butterflies are floating through the sky. That's magical realism. Yeah. Right, but it's not transrealism because those butterflies are not actually there. The book that I was talking about, transrealist book that I wrote, is Worlds Within Worlds, and there is actually a second in the series which is also transrealism, and that one deals with women's, the perception of women in society, among other things.